Hey folks, Jackdaw here. There was a time when Fable was the Xbox RPG, a series that gave you a world where every choice mattered, where you could buy up entire towns, decide whether to be the hero Albion desperately needed, or the landlord from hell, and where the line between noble knight and comically evil despot was usually just a matter of whether you fancied kicking a chicken that day. Fable was a fantasy RPG where morality wasn't just about good and evil, but about the absurd, the ridiculous, and the consequences of making deeply questionable life choices. It had theatre, satire, British absurdity, and enough charm to make up for every overblown promise Peter Molyneux had ever made. But that was 14 years ago. Since then, Fable has been in limbo. Lionhead Studios, the original team that built Albion from the ground up, is gone. Fable Legends was cancelled, and the future of Albion seemed like it had been lost to history. That is, until Playground Games, the team best known for the Forza racing games, were handed the reins to reboot the franchise. And now, we're breaking down everything we know so far about this Fable reboot. What's changed, the story, what we can expect, its gameplay, and most importantly, whether this new Fable will still feel like Fable. So for the first time ever, Fable isn't being developed by Lionhead Studios because, well, Lionhead doesn't exactly exist anymore. After Microsoft shut them down in 2016, it seemed like Fable was gone for good. But then in 2020, Fable reappeared, with Playground Games at the helm. Which, on the surface, I get it, it might seem like an odd choice. A studio famous for building photorealistic cars and vast festival worlds doesn't exactly scream the 17th century inspired Britain world that is Albion. But you gotta remember, Playground Games has a proven track record of building massive, seamless open worlds. Even if you don't like racing games, the Forza franchises has always been top notch consistently. If they can make the British countryside feel alive in Forza Horizon, they can certainly do the same for Albion. Most importantly, Playground have brought in some serious talent for Fable, from Anna McGill, the lead writer, Martin Lancaster, the narrative director, Craig Owens, the scriptwriter, Will Kennedy, the chief designer, and Juan Fernandez de Simon as the principal games designer, each with a variety of experience from Control, Dishonored, Batman Arkham Knight, Rocksteady, GTA 5 and Hellblade. It's truly a stacked team. Now this is not a sequel to Fable 3. It is a complete reboot, a fresh start, and that is important. It means reimagining the core DNA of what makes Fable, well, Fable. Now to me, subjectively, that is a world full of eccentric humour, that sarcastic British dry charm, and townsfolk who react with full agency, especially when you do start swinging your sword like a lunatic. Ultimately, an RPG with choices that shape your legend. But this is also a chance for Playground to recreate the world of Fable without the baggage of previous lore and story threads. That means that the team can refine, modernize, and rebuild Albion from the ground up, rather than just picking up where the industrialized world of Fable 3 left off. And from what we've seen, this Fable looks like it's stepping back to its roots, a world of knights, bandits, and magic, rather than rifles and industry, but more on that one in a bit. One of the most surprising choices for this reboot so far has been the fact that it's built in the Forza Tech engine. Of course, the same engine that powers the Forza games. At first glance, this may seem quite odd, a racing game for an RPG of this scale, but actually, Forza Tech is a very impressive engine, known for how good it is at rendering, from photorealistic environments to open world transitions and dynamic weather. The Forza games are always vastly impressive in terms of their visuals, so Playground has actually been tweaking the engine for years. So this most likely means that Albion has never looked this good before. Now, according to the trailer last year, Fable is set for a 2025 release. But let's be honest, this isn't a game you should expect to be gallivanting around Albion until the end of the year, just given how Playground Games has been quietly refining it for years. Additionally, how Xbox has carefully staggered its biggest releases. A Q4 2025 release seems most likely inevitable. We'll probably know for certain when GTA 6 officially announces its release. Speaking of last year's trailer, it gave us the biggest indicator on the game's story so far, as it introduced Humphrey, a retired hero of strength, played by British actor and comedian Matt King. If that name sounds familiar, he played Super Hans in Peep Show, and it's exactly that kind of casting that tells you Fable's signature dry humour is still very much intact. And the same could be said when Richard Ayoade, best known as Moss from the IT crowd, appeared in one of the first Fable trailers in 2023. Back to Humphrey, who is a mess. His house is a disaster, littered with broken weapons, old trophies, and enough discarded armour to suggest that he hasn't been in a fighting shape for quite some time. But beneath the comedy, there's something off about him. He's haunted by something, or rather, someone. The key thing about Humphrey isn't just that he's retired, it's that something happened to him. And based on this trailer, we kind of know what. At one point, he gestures to a grand painting of himself as a heroic figure draped in a red cape. He then tells us about his biggest regret, a former apprentice, someone he trained, someone powerful, someone he admired. But there is a problem. She was too powerful, she was too ambitious, and now she's back. And she's wearing Humphrey's cape. The one he used to wear, now draped over her shoulders like a trophy. And we get a sense of his guilt. Whether he created this monster through negligence or outright arrogance, we get the idea that this is his mistake to fix. And here's the twist. We are not this fallen hero, despite this trailer featuring a female-led protagonist. This was just to mislead us until actually the end of the trailer with this villain reveal. Unlike past Fable games where we played a direct descendant of a previous hero, this time we are somebody new. A fresh hero in training, taking up the mantle. Someone Humphrey is reluctantly preparing, but one who might be facing the exact same path as this villain. Possibly the only one who can stop his former apprentice. So we have a different angle here, at least in my opinion, to this Fable's storytelling. Instead of just hero versus villain, this is shaping up to be a mentor-student dynamic, where Humphrey is essentially trying to redeem himself through us. So Humphrey has already trained one hero, and it went terribly wrong. Knowing Fable, the choices we make will likely determine whether we become a better hero than his last apprentice, or if we decide to follow in her footsteps. Other key takeaways from this trailer briefly: property ownership appears to be back. A signpost with a contract pinned to it strongly hints at the ability to buy buildings, just of course like in previous games. Hobs, trolls and bandits all made an appearance in this trailer, confirming the return of some classic Fable enemies. And so far, no guns. Based on that, it looks firmly medieval, potentially could be set in the Fable 1 era. Magic and archaic weapons only. Gonna need to see if this is for certain. Now, as exciting as that story trailer was, we actually haven't really seen Fable in motion, despite the few glimmers of gameplay in that trailer, but not an official reveal. However, behind the scenes, Jez Corden, the executive editor of Windows Central last year in November, he revealed that he actually got to see alpha footage of Fable, and his verdict: it's effing fantastic, is what he said. Now, Jez didn't clarify where the alpha footage came from, how old it was, or who else might have seen it, but he did confirm that it was circulating behind the scenes, suggesting that at the time Xbox may be gearing up for a bigger public reveal soon. Most importantly, he made one thing very clear: it looks better than any of the trailers we've seen so far, which is bloody bold because the trailers are flipping beautiful. And crucially, this wasn't pre-rendered cinematics or staged in engine shots. This was actually real gameplay. The player character actively being controlled, showing off combat, movement, and the world of Albion in real time. And Speaking of said player character, Jez did confirm that Fable will feature both male and female protagonist options, a choice that, yes, it hasn't been shown in official marketing yet, but one that has always been a core part of the series' deep character customization. Jez suspects that the next time we'll see Fable will most likely have a male protagonist front and center. He likened the combat to The Witcher, featuring parrying, dodging, executions, and weapon switching on the fly, all with a satirical Fable edge to it. Now, this all does make sense considering Playground hired developers from The Witcher 3 and Cyberpunk, including combat designer Paul Capalla. And so, from everything we've seen and heard so far, this reboot feels like it understands what made Fable great back in the 2000s. The humour being sharp, cynical, and deeply quintessentially British, the world being rich, alive, packed with detail and choice, and the story actually being personal, not just another save the world plot. But there are still bigger questions unanswered. Will we still have morality-altering choices? How deep will these RPG systems go, especially from, a largely racing game-based developer? And most importantly, can we still kick chickens? Either way, I'm sure we'll find out soon enough, and we'll see more of this game in due time. Hopefully not too long to wait, most likely in the summer when Xbox do a proper big showcase. Let me know, are you excited for Fable's return? And do you trust Playground Games to do it justice? Let me know all of your thoughts down below. I have been Jackdaw, and you are in the right place for all the latest on upcoming fantasy RPGs like Fable. Until the next one, I should go. Whoa, 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 whoa.